have been catching a lot of trout. It's just the fact of getting the weather to cooperate with us. And of course, the last 5 days been blowing 25 plus out of the south to east, southeast, back and forth. I mean, the blessing for us is this time of the year, generally in May, we have a lot of little fronts still pushing through and giving us a lot of north winds and east winds, but we haven't really had that problem. But we've been stuck in this little, I guess you can say, a little low area pushing us the east wind for about 4 or 5 days now. So that's been the difficult part for us, is actually get some winds to settle down and get out there. But every time we've got out there and been able to fish it the pattern we wanted, we've caught plenty of trout, and a lot of quality trout too. I mean, you're not catching 5 and 6 pound deaded, but the typical 2 and 3 pound little females you're finding everywhere, which is good. I mean, that's what you want to see right now. To me, a topwater bait in early part of the summertime is like a long distance fish finder, because if you can just find where the trout are sitting at on the surf, then you're going to catch them immediately. I mean, you usually find 1 or 2, then you're going to catch the whole bang of them. So a good part about topwater bait, even if I want to stop because I see mullets or some kind of bait on the surf, I just start slinging that top dog around for a little while, and they'll tell me where they at from then on. Then I can stop and start fishing with jigs or whatever I want to throw, or continue with a topwater bait, depending on what I'm catching. Well, we're bouncing off of Brush Island right now. Found plenty of bait off this island, just wasn't stacked with fish. I mean, there's a few little fish inside here mixed with a couple of good ones, but I think we might actually try a couple of platforms right here around us and see if some of the females are still sitting deep and the little males are on the bars right now. It might be a safe bet to assume right now, from what I've seen some of the locals catching that we buzzed by, they're catching a few little small males. So maybe them females just haven't related to it just yet, which means that it should probably be on one of these platforms, not very far off from it. Well, we left the islands assuming we'd find some females there feeding or getting ready to spawn, and we didn't catch many at all. At first stop off the brush platform, we caught a few decent little fish over there, and then I bounced around on a few more and didn't really get anything. So I'm checking to see out here if some of the bigger fish, the females, are sitting out here feeding, waiting to go to their spawning grounds to meet the males. Because like I said, when we left brush, the boats that were sitting at brush, they weren't exactly tearing them up, but they were catching a few fish around brush, and mostly looked like to me some males with a few females mixed in them. I'm a greedy fisherman. I like to see big, nice sows myself. And that's what we planned on targeting today, was some decent sized sow trout. So I'm looking out here just to see if, I'm gonna take my tail off. Hey, grab it again. And see if there's some better fish maybe out here. Found something while I'm talking, I decided to grab this bait and run with it. Let's see what she is. Might not be anything we want. There's a big bull red. Look at the bull red following him. Look at the bull red. Look at the bull red following him. Look at him. Watch him. Look, he's trying to get her too. He wants to eat her. Look at him. He wants to eat her. Come on, big boy. Here, play with it. Come on. He wants the bait from her. Look at him. Wow. He's not huge, but I say he's about 25 pounds, huh? Kind of what I was just saying. This is what I'm coming here to look and see. If they're just still out here feeding. When we left the dock, we was assuming we're getting close to the moon phase, and maybe they'd be out on the beach line or shallow sandbars doing their spawning job, which is typical what happens. But if you're a couple of days early, then this is where they should be, out here feeding, looking for food. Because like we said earlier, I think they made a decision last night that May 7th is opening their brown shrimp season for this area. So this is where the brown shrimp is supposed to be right now, all around these big open bays around the platforms. So that's the primary forage for them right now, is shrimp, until they fatten themselves up to lay their eggs out on them sandbars. So if we're a couple of days early, then this is where they should be. So we'll check and see. Maybe they're out here eating. This one of them, flow lines are giving them structure from the top all the way to the bottom. And a lot of times the flow lines, in this case, the depth I want to say here is about 6.5 foot of water, but the flow lines will go down 3.5 foot, and that's it. So your structure is in the mid zone where you want them to be for trout. I mean, sometimes you find trout on the very bottom, sometimes you find them on top, but like most fish, trout do suspend, and this is where they're suspending at right now, is in the middle of the column. So they're sitting right on top of them flow lines, which is perfect for them. That's a good yellow mouth. It's a perfect scenario for where they want to set up at, right on top of the flow lines and feed. So that's where these guys are at. As I said earlier, we bounced around different places and tried to find them on shallow sandbars, assuming they might be out there spawning, but not yet. They're still out here feeding themselves, fattening up. Good little chunks. Make a little mess. This is Bass Assassin Skinny Dipper, well, die dipper bait is what we call it. And all it is a 5-inch shad bait. It's made to give you a bigger presentation. As we're talking about here, the key to most of these trout out here is just trying to find food that'll sustain them for their spawning process. And of course, everybody knows that one of the key baits for trout is a mullet. So this bait represent like a little small finger mullet. And we do it here, we're using a long shank screw lock hook made by Bass Assassin with a mustad hook on it. And you just kind of corkscrew it on it, wrong way. And it kind of helps it hold its body onto this big long hook. Gives it something to bite down onto. And as you see, I came out the flat side versus the split opening side where you can rig it weedless for fishing redfish, but I came out the flat side because when you're swimming on the jig head that way, it actually gives a better presentation. It has more of a paddle tail action to it. As you can see, the tail doing its job and the bait's doing its rocking and forward action, side to side action, which is what you want it to do. If you come out the slit side of it with the jig head, then it won't actually do the action. It'll just kind of dart in the water. It has a real erratic and not natural at all. So